everyone, and welcome back to Turn Towards Love. In the last video, we explored Sadhana, which means the practice of returning to ourselves through consistency, awareness, and presence. And through that practice, you may have begun to notice something subtle. That not everything you experience feels like who you truly are. So I wanted to bring a nice analogy to this. If we think about the mind, it's a bit like the sky, and our thoughts are like clouds passing through it. Sometimes the sky is clear, and sometimes it's full of clouds. Sometimes there's a storm, but no matter what is happening, the sky itself is still there. In the same way, your thoughts come and go, but there's a part of you that remains unchanged. And that's the awareness observing all of it. So we know that thoughts come and go, that emotions rise up and fall down, that the body changes and life is always moving. And yet, there is something within you that is always there, quietly observing it all. You may have felt this, even if you didn't have the words for it to explain it. And this is where yoga philosophy begins to give us a language for that experience. Emotions can be understood like waves in the ocean. They rise, they move, and they eventually pass. Some waves are calm and gentle. Others feel intense and overwhelming. But underneath all of that movement, the ocean is still there. And in the same way, beneath our emotions, there is a deeper steadiness within us. We don't need to stop the waves. We just begin to recognize that we are not the wave, but also the ocean itself. In yoga, it is said that there are two fundamental aspects of our existence. There's Purusha, which means pure awareness, the part of you that observes, that's the witness, that doesn't change. And then there is Prakriti, everything that moves and changes. So it's the opposite to Purusha, is Prakriti. So your thoughts, your emotions, your body, and the world around you, it's all in that movement. So one is the observer and one is the experience. So you can notice this even now. You can observe your thoughts, for example, which means you are not your thoughts. Because you can observe what they're thinking, it means you are not them. You can feel your emotions, which means you are not just your emotions. There is a space between you and what you experience. And that space is awareness. If you didn't understand this, exactly what I'm saying, or you would actually like to try and explain this to someone else, this can help. So I just made up this pen analogy. So you have a pen which resembles your thoughts, and you can see the pen, the thoughts, but you aren't the pen. So you aren't the thoughts. So the thoughts in your mind are going on and on and on. But because you can witness them, observe them, what are your thoughts saying separately than you? But you can see the distance between you and the thought. There's a distance. And so there's a distance between you and the pen. And that space between makes you realize none of that is you, but it's what you are witnessing, the whole of it. If you can observe it, it's not you. This understanding becomes even clearer when we look at how yoga describes the unfolding of experience. From the perspective of yoga philosophy, everything that we experience comes from the Prakriti, nature unfolding itself. And then the first expression is Mahat or Buddhi, which means intelligence, discernment, the part of us that knows. And then there's Ahamkara. From that comes the sense of I. This is where identity begins, meaning like I am this. So I am ... whatever follows. And and an analogy to explain this is like our sense of identity, which means like the roles that we take on in life, can be a bit like the clothes that we wear. We might wear different clothes in different situations, and in the same way we might take on different roles in life. But no matter what we're wearing, it's not who we truly are inside. And in the same way, the roles we identify with, they're a part of our experience, but they're not the whole of who you are. We wear them, but we are not them. Okay, and now we'll go on to the 3 gunas. And from here, nature expresses itself through 3 qualities. 3 qualities. Satva, which is clarity and balance. Rajas, which is movement and activity. And Tamas, which is heaviness and stillness. These are always moving within us. Mind and senses. From here we move into how we experience the world through the senses and through our actions. So the subtle qualities behind everything is touch, sound, form, taste, smell. And we have like the space, the ether as well. And finally, the physical world we can see and that we can touch. So what we begin to see is that everything from our thoughts to our body to the world around us is constantly changing, and it's all a part of Prakriti. Remember that Prakriti is always moving and always evolving. It's the experience. And then we're going to bring back to Purusha to anchor that. So through all of this, there is still something that does not change, something that simply observes, and that is Purusha. I like to say that this is the heart. It's the understanding that gently changes the way we experience life, because when we believe that we are everything that we feel, we can become super overwhelmed, reactive. We're caught in the story, in the reaction, in the moment, in the trigger. We're so caught in that. But when we begin to recognize that we are also the awareness behind the experience, something begins to soften. So when there's that pause between before the reaction, there's more space there. There's more clarity. There's more freedom. And this is why Sadhana, so the practice, is so important, because it's through the practice that we begin to see this for ourselves, not just understand it, but experience it. And it's such a huge part of understanding why people practice things in the first place. Why Buddhists and monks and yogis, they spend and dedicate their lives devoted to practice and within that devotion, and they do that for a reason. And it's what happens during that devotional practice is that higher sense of self begins to be witnessed, observed, understood, and then also integrated, embodied. We become that. Suddenly, we don't find what we used to react to, we don't find like it bothers us anymore. So we're like, wow, that would have really triggered me. And now there's no sort of inner fire or trigger or anything that's just going to go. It softens, and it softens and softens and softens until it dissolves completely. And that can take time and effort and the practice and the devotion and the surrender to all the things that you're witnessing that causes reaction. And then you can, once you know what that is, you've got that great step to be able to then offer that up, so to free you from that. And that can come in many ways, but in practice you find that stillness, and that goes beyond the understanding into the embodiment. So yoga isn't asking us to become something new. It's gently guiding us to recognize what has already been there, the awareness behind every thought, every feeling, every experience. And the more we return to that, to the awareness, the more we begin to move through life with a sense of ease, clarity, and connection. So thank you for being here and listening to this wonderful lesson. I find this extremely beneficial to manage every day and everything that happens to us, because sometimes we can think things that are happening to us are happening against us, and it's a way of understanding that actually it's happening for us to witness, for us to observe where it is within ourselves that trigger, that hurt, that cause pain and suffering. And then once we know that what we don't like, what hurts us, we're able to navigate our changes and our way around, an understanding of why is this, and what part of us and what part of our body is feeling those reactions and those fears and those triggers. And then we can go into practice with the understanding that, wow, we've actually taken a step back before a reaction. We've understood, or when we've reacted, we understood why now. Whoa, look, I'm out of balance now. And now I know why, because this happened and it made me feel defensive. And so I can go and sit in practice, or in movement, or in any practice that is what you feel like in that moment. And then you can set an intention to free that from your body, so you don't feel like pulled around by other people or things that happen, situations that happen that can pull us emotionally. But you can actually stay steady and calm and in peace, and in that non-reactive state, so in a response rather than a reaction. So with that, thank you very much, and I will see you on the next video. Bye for now, and may you always turn towards love.